Alex, hi.
Hi, how are you doing? Good evening.
Hi from Kiev.
Hi from the United Kingdom.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Alex, you are very, very active in your support. I think due to you, to your British support, to your personal activity of your team, of all your political and uh, social activity, due to your political nation, we have such kind of achievement. We recently, our President Zelensky, and your Prime Minister Rishi Sunak signed very, very important agreement. That there are a lot of rumors, a lot of speculations about this agreement. What are the importance? Are there any importance of this agreement? However, it's very interesting for me, for Ukrainian foreign policy expert, to know your British vision of this agreement. What are the practical use of this security agreement?
Yeah, I think Andre, I think the fact that we're a global leader, I think is really vital. I think we've seen and heard now that President Macron has been talking about doing something similar. So actually being a first mover in this space, being the first country to sign one of these major agreements for security cooperation with Ukraine, and alongside that, really key funding and investment for security of Ukraine, and actually increasing our budget from last year, and at a time when there's a lot of chatter about global support for Ukraine starting to be on the wane, which from a point of view of a grassroots campaigner is just simply not true. But that unfortunately is a narrative that's in the media, and peddled by, I think, some of the opponents of Ukraine. But actually, what we've seen is a steadfast ally in the United Kingdom, not only committing money, but actually an agreement as well that's going to really put in concrete our long-term support for Ukraine.
And what are the main areas of cooperation between the UK and Ukraine do you see in the future? The areas which can, based on this agreement, because we understand this is just a start of more deep cooperation between two states. However, we have already had. And we have good cooperation on different levels, economical, military level. But what is the capacity, what is the potential of this agreement in the nearest future?
I think in the nearest future, we're talking clearly about reconstruction. I think one of the discussions we're having in the United Kingdom right now is how to unlock those frozen Russian assets. How do we move from the freezing to the seizing to the spending? And I think that's really vital. And actually, the agreement that Rishi Sunak signed with Zelensky, what did talk about this idea and talk about actually the EU's commitment to actually getting money spent in Ukraine. Now, we know in Europe, one of our biggest challenges is how to convince the Belgians to unfreeze their assets, because they're the ones that have the vast majority of frozen Russian assets that are sitting in Belgian bank accounts. But actually, you know what? I think by being a leader, we can show some of those European partners actually, how we're commitment is there. Those other countries need to follow suit, and actually, we need that spending to happen not when the war's over, but it needs to start event now. Ukrainian reconstruction will turbocharge the economy. It will create jobs, and actually, that's also very important for winning the war. It's an economic war as much as it is a military war.
Alex, what is your reaction and what was the reaction of British society to this agreement? If we would take the rationale, not to take in account the critics, because it's a usual common thing for such kind of event. But what is the rationale in the public opinion, in the public sector concerning this agreement with Ukraine? What was the reaction positive, and how the your society perceived this agreement?
I think overwhelmingly positive. I think people really have supported. I've not seen a single word of criticism. I don't think about the deal that was signed. The Labour Party, who are the party of opposition right now, and clearly the general election in the UK is going to happen this year, and a lot of speculation about who might win that general election. But interestingly, Labour have completely come out and backed what has been done. So there is cross-party and overwhelming support for the agreement and continued support for Ukraine. I think if anything, I think there's the only dissenting voices, the ones that say we should do more for support Ukraine, and actually perhaps the agreement could be going further and delivering more aid and more money. But I think right now I think it's important, and I think it's a real, as I said, a real cornerstone of how we can galvanize worldwide and European support for Ukraine.
Did I understand correctly that nobody politicized the agreement? So it was a unanimous decision of the majority of the politicians in your country concerning the necessity of this agreement. And did I understand correctly that this agreement could be some kind of example for other countries to follow?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, I think that's where we're quite lucky in the UK. There's no dissenting voices when it comes to Ukraine. There's not the same division that you see in America or some of the Eastern European countries.
Slovakia.
We're quite lucky that all of the major parties, and that's all and even the minor parties. So even if you look past Labour and the Conservatives, the SNP, the Liberal Democrats, the DUP, the medium sized and small parties, even they are supporting Ukraine. You'll always find one or two tin pot parties out there that might be opposed to it, but actually on broad support, and I think it is overwhelming.
Well, it's very, very interesting to hear your personal estimates of this agreement. I really agree with you on all these points, and I'm really glad that we have common vision of the situation. My next question concerns your activity of your organization, of our organization, the UK Friends of Ukraine in the media in your last very, very important initiative. I'm just talking about your new initiative that you launched a campaign asking the UK government to recognize Russia as a terror state, and you published in your social media very, very a detailed report of Russian atrocities, Russian crimes in Ukraine during the last 2 years, and not only 2 years, actually during the last 10 years of these aggressions against Ukraine. I really thank you for such kind of initiative because it's very important to watch it now. Now it means on the eve of the presidential elections in Russia, and on the eve of some kind of turmoil in Europe and US concerning support or not support Ukraine. But what are the main points of your report, and what are your main messages of your very, very important and very, I would say, very overwhelming report?
I think what we really wanted to do was bring together a report that actually, an English language report as well, that just brought together all of, I say, a complete history and timeline of just exactly the Russian atrocities over the last 10 years, as you said. There's not many sort of Bibles, if you like, of those atrocities. And actually, we wanted to just put them all together and actually say, look what's happened over the last 10 years. And don't forget what's happened. There's been awful atrocities that have taken place. And bring them all together into a complete sort of history and timeline of that. Now, I mentioned to you a little bit earlier about the issue of moving from freezing to seizing, and actually, I think recognizing Russia a terrorist state is I think it could be a really important step along delivering on that promise to move from freezing to seizing. And I'll explain why. Because I genuinely think unless you sort of describe Russia as a state non grata and then bring forward some form of legislation to underpin that, I think that's the only way you're going to start to legally be able to take some of this money and spend it in Ukraine. So I think what the UK government can and should be doing is bringing forward legislation, calling Russia a terrorist state, and alongside that saying this money that's sitting in a frozen bank account, of which there is somewhere in the region of about £20 billion in the UK. Let's be a global first leader and saying, let's put the money in an escrow account, let's spend that on reconstruction. And actually, we can do that all together. We can say Russia is no longer a country we want to recognize as a country of any legitimacy, in the world view, and any money that's been accumulated by essentially a terrorist state organization, that money should now be spent on Ukraine. So that's exactly where we want to go. And I think you are absolutely right. The Russian presidential elections are around the corner, and we also need to be putting pressure on the international community to say no country should recognize Vladimir Putin as the legitimate president of Russia. We know he's a despotic dictator, and we know that any election that's going to take place in Russia will be completely fraudulent. That no major opposition leader will be allowed anywhere near the ballot paper. We know Navalny is locked up somewhere in a prison, and any of the hand-picked, chosen people that Putin will put up against himself, who will be allowed to score maybe 1 or 2% of the vote, they are not real opposition. And actually, we need to make absolutely clear from UK point of view, this is a terrorist state. This is what terrorist states look like. They are completely undemocratic. They might try to give the veneer of credibility by some of their fake elections, but actually we need to stand up and say this is not a country that any country should be doing business with.
Alex, how long have you been working on this report, and who helped you? And where did you collect the information from? I saw the links. It was actually it is actually some kind of analysis of the situation, but I also saw a lot of practical information which you taken from your, I think, different sources. How you succeeded in such kind of high quality of this report?
Well, I guess thanks. We've got a really good team of people in our organisation, and I'm really thankful, particularly to so our lead researcher was Stephen Hoffman, who's done put a lot of work and time into really putting a really detailed analysis, as you said, on all the last 10 years. So we are thankful to have a number of people in our team who are really dedicated towards supporting Ukraine from the UK, and putting that together, the work and time to put a report together that I'm pleased is of really good quality.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Thank you for your report. I'm waiting for your new initiatives in UK and in Ukraine, because you try to build up a stable bridge, very concrete bridge, very perspective bridge, and I see that you have already succeeded a lot, and our common cooperation will benefit, will create a good base for our common victory. Actually, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andre.
Thank you.